I think it's important that when someone meets with an insurance agent for the first time or over time, that they feel comfortable and confident that they're getting guidance that they need for their either purchase or for their ongoing homeowners. The market changes. The coverages change. There are new and different coverages that are being available all the time.
Hi, this is Dave Steinberg, your mortgage guy, and this is your Mortgages Made Easy podcast. Today, we're joined by Lillian Chapman. Lillian is a very experienced insurance person. She has spent years with companies like Liberty Mutual. She was a director of training for Liberty Mutual. She did all sorts of executive jobs there. And then in her second career, she's now an insurance broker with a family insurance business, Chapman Insurance. And we met last week. We had such a great time that we just had to get you on this podcast so you could share your wisdom with our clients.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate that.
So everyone I know is getting buffeted these days. You know, my clients in New York, my clients in New Jersey and Florida and Connecticut. It seems that insurance rates are going up. Home insurance rates are going up. Car insurance rates are going up. What's going on, Lillian?
Well, the industry is in a bit of turmoil, I have to say. We've seen in the last 18 months, all of the carriers really just kind of holding hands and raising rates. So why is it? Why are we seeing the rate increases? They're very reactionary to losses. The combined ratios have been well over $1. So that's how companies manage their risk.
Explain that. What do you mean by the losses have been over $1?
So companies look at, for every dollar we bring in, how much do we pay out in claims? And they've been seeing that they're bringing in $1 and paying out $1.20, $1.10, $1.30. And that is not a money-making operation. So they have to find ways to mitigate those losses. And they're, as I said, reactionary. So the rate changes come after the fact. So we've seen weather countrywide impacting rates. States like California, Texas, Louisiana, Florida have companies that have pulled out entirely, other companies that have just either stopped writing temporarily or have put in many different types of stopgaps to prevent additional policies from being written. They'll work with their agents to put in different criteria about what new business should look like. They'll also look at their current book of business and say, do I have people here that have had multiple claims that maybe we can get off of that risk? Of course, in New York State, there are rules around having a homeowner's, there's a 3-year track where a company can't cancel a policy within that 3-year period. So they have
What does that mean? Explain that.
So it's a protection. It's a consumer protection where a company, if it's within a 3-year cycle. So let's say we start a policy today, and let's say you have a loss 8 months in. The company is on that risk in New York for 3 full years. So at the end of that 3-year period, they can look at that risk and say, I want to go back and cancel that risk now moving forward because they've had a loss history. But companies are kind of stuck on those risks for 3 years entirely. And again, it's a consumer protection.
So let's focus on homes first. We can swing back and talk about cars later in the conversation. As a homeowner, what should I know when I experience a loss? A tree falls on my house. Something happens. What should I know? What should I do first?
Well, at the Chapman Agency, we suggest you call us first. And we answer our cell phones 24/7. Unfortunately, we had somebody in that exact situation a couple of weeks ago. So the first thing you want to do is be safe. You want to make sure that you get, in this particular situation, the tree was on the house. It was inches away from our insured's bed, just missed her
Mm.
bed. So you want to get the property safe and secured. You also want to secure the property from potential more weather. So in this instance, there was a lot of rain. There was continued rain expected for days after that. So it's incumbent upon the insured to mitigate future loss by
By
getting
mitigate future
someone in.
loss, I mean do whatever they possibly can to secure the house to prevent future losses.
Exactly, exactly. So if it
Okay.
means tarping the home, in some cases they'll have to shut electric off. It's all kinds of safety is taken into account,
Hmm.
and of course, insured wants to be back in their home. They don't want to be out, but policies do include coverage for additional living expense if they have to be at a hotel, or if it's really extended, perhaps in either a home or an apartment for a period of time till things are
Hmm.
repaired.
Okay, so time out for a minute, guys. Lillian, let's not use the word insured,
Okay.
right? Because that's industry speak. So let's
Okay.
call it, the client, the customer,
Okay.
Marge, whatever. I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on you,
No, 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 no.
but I want it to be relatable in that sense.
Okay.
So let's try that again.
Okay.
Um, I have the sense that there's been a lot of stuff going on in New York. You were just telling me about a client who experienced a loss. Tell me about it. What happened to their house and
Mhm.
what did they have to do?
So with all the wet weather we've had recently, it makes the ground spongy, and you may have a giant tree that's strong and healthy, but because the ground is so wet and saturated, a little bit of wind comes by, and that tree can go down and cause damage to their property. And this is
Mm,
exactly what happened to one of our clients, our dear clients, a couple weeks back. So it's talking about claims, and in that instance, that was most definitely something that they needed to call us about and call their insurance company about. But when you're looking at the big picture, many small type things happen too to people where an insurance company is going to look at you and say, has that person put in multiple claims over time? So when you
mm,
have a tree on your home, absolutely, that's a claim you want to look at. But companies are saying, have you had 2, 3, 4 losses in the last couple of years? And you were asking me about what happens to rates, and how do companies decide who they might cancel. That would be a reason. So one of the things we recommend when people come in is to maybe consider higher deductibles. Definitely call us when they have a claim because we want to
mhm.
talk to them about it. Maybe it's something that's not a claim that they want to actually put in because it's close to the deductible, or something that's maybe close to a maintenance situation that they can take care of on their own.
Mm. So I've given my clients the same advice over the years, and I think this is great advice. What many consumers don't understand is that to an insurance company, you're just an account, that you're not a human being. And so what your job and my job is to translate that to the consumer and to share with the consumer just how important it is to think before you call, right? So if some kid throws a softball through your window and it's a $300 loss, maybe you don't call the insurance company about it because they log the calls and then it's part of their incident history.
Exactly right. And there's a report called Clue, and what Clue is all the companies together put all those claims on a database. So when you want to change companies, when you go, either you're with a broker like us and you want to remarket your policies to see if you can find a better rate, a better combination for you, or if you are just looking out for a new policy, or your first time home buyer, there's a report that will show about the losses of the house that you're buying. It'll also show the losses for a current owner who's looking to remarket their own insurance.
Mm.
And that
And then
will
if your
play into the rate.
score is bad, it's going to be harder to get new insurance.
When you're, which score did you say?
If your clue score is bad,
Right.
then no one's going to want to play with you.
Well, it's going to depend on what is on that clue. So, for example, if there are 3 water losses in a home, an underwriter might say, your insured is buying a house, your client's buying a house that's had 3 water losses. Can you tell me about the plumbing there? Has the plumbing been reviewed by a plumber? Have they had someone in, perhaps part of their inspection report, to show if there's repairs that need to be made before that purchase is completed in the case of a new home buyer?
Lillian, that's great advice. And it's something I'm going to now start incorporating into my conversation with home buyers, because it sounds to me like what you're saying is, do you hear that in the background? The siren? Are you okay? You're not hearing a siren. Okay, I'm going to start that again. I apologize, everyone.
That's okay.
This mic must be better than I thought, because if you didn't hear it, it was like
I didn't hear.
Resonating in this room. That's something that I'm going to incorporate into my conversations with home buyers, because I've never really thought about telling them to get the clue report before they sign the contract. But that sounds like great advice. If there's a home that has experienced multiple losses, future insurance may be harder to get on that home, even if you're great. So that's great advice. I really appreciate that.
And they also might be looking at future repairs of their own. If a claim happened and the home wasn't properly repaired afterwards, then they might be looking at more losses or just more expense. And that's not something anybody wants to look at when they're first buying a new home.
They want
to be putting beautiful things in the home, not making repairs typically.
Right. So that's fantastic advice. And I think that, without trying to understand the exact reasons for it, but what we're seeing is in some markets, there are companies that are withdrawing. And you told me about a company that you're working with that is being very aggressive in some parts of our market. And I love the fact that you work with so many different companies and therefore have the capacity. Sometimes people call me up and they say, oh, I just called the unnamed company with some unnamed cartoon character or whatever. And what they're giving up is the agent. And and in our conversations, what I've learned with you, and I've experienced it with other great insurance brokers, is that there's a huge value to having someone who's smart, who's experienced, and who's capable of giving you good guidance. And I so much appreciate that of you, and I look forward to working with you in the future. I love the fact that you are accessible and you put your judgment to the service of my client as they approach the home buying experience.
Oh, thank you, David. I appreciate that. I think it's important that when someone meets with an insurance agent for the first time or over time, that they feel comfortable and confident that they're getting guidance that they need for their either purchase or for their ongoing homeowners. The market changes. The coverages change. There are new and different coverages that are being available all the time. And if you don't make a review of your policy, there's a couple of things that you might be missing out on. Certain discounts. They're applying new discounts today for all kinds of different things. For example, many people are putting alarms in their homes and they're getting smart alarms. Some of them will actually tell if a pipe is burst in their house, if there's a change in the temperature in their home, where pipes could freeze. Many of these things can provide discounts on home policies. Coverages like like equipment breakdown and service lines coming into the home underground. These are coverages that not all carriers have. And if they do, they may have just gotten it in the last couple of years made available, and you may not have it. Now you may not choose all of these things, or you may not have all of these devices, but it's good to check in to see if you're missing out either on a savings or if you're missing out on important protection.
One of the things you mentioned earlier is managing what your deductibility is.
Deductible.
Deductible, sorry about that. Managing your deductible. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was great advice, because not everyone has the same risk tolerance. And so someone with maybe a greater risk tolerance, or someone who is, let's say, has greater capacity to absorb a loss, might really save. And it's not only that they'll save every year, but they'll save over the life of the policy, even if they do experience one or two small losses over the years.
For years and years, and I've been in the business, it's 40 plus years. And, back in the old days. You
started when you were 2, I get it.
I did. Yeah. Right out of the womb. We would see a $500 deductible. That was standard. And then it went to $1,000, fairly quickly, where $1,000 deductible was the standard. So here we fast forward now, 2024, $1,000 is really not very much. We're recommending $2,500, $5,000. Again, it's two things that you're doing. You mentioned the savings. You're going to save money because you're taking a higher deductible, but you're also saving your policy in that you're not going to put in a smaller claim. And you're not going to have a claim against you potentially moving forward that's on a smaller basis, something that you can manage yourself. So it really makes sense to look at the deductible and say, what's right for me?
And we just did a transaction with a client, you and I, and you wrote an unusual policy, and you took the time to explain to me that why we didn't use on this home policy what's called the industry standard, or the HO3, and used a different policy. And I thought that was brilliant, because not every home is the same, not every policy is the same. And here you were able to tailor the policy to the specific needs of the client. And that's just so wonderful.
Well, that's another great point. Not every carrier is going to offer the same protections as the other. And many times, if you find a company that can package those coverages into a really nice policy package for someone, giving them all the things that they need and they can choose, you're going to find some savings and you're going to find excellent protection.
What's your superpower?
My superpower is I'm a good listener, and I can take what someone says and then put it into action. So if you tell me something about yourself, working with someone, perhaps someone new comes to our office, I can ask some questions and I listen really carefully and I take notes. Sometimes they're up here, but I do take note. And then I can take that information and come back with a good solution for them. So I think that's my superpower.
And I mentioned it, but why would somebody in 2024, when there are all these online tools, why would somebody work with an old-fashioned insurance agent rather than some online gee whiz technology company?
That's simple. That's very simple. There are things that we're all good at. There are things that we all study and like to think ourselves experts at. I could clean my house. I could probably do a decent job of it, but it's not something I'm expert at. My husband's very handy with doing the gardening and things there, but when it comes down to something that you really want to protect, like your home, your car, your life, which is really you and what you've built up over time, you want to make sure you have a professional giving you the right guidance and the right advice.
What advice would you have for a first-time home buyer entering the market and needing insurance?
I especially like to sit down with first-time home buyers because I feel it's something fresh and new. If you have a clean slate, they don't have any um, uh, preconceived notions, and at the same time, they don't know how it works. So I even do that basically with car insurance. I sit down and I go over. I say to them, "You have liability, you have no fault. Do you know what those things do?" And they're like, yeah, but why don't you go over it? And I give very simple, very straightforward explanations as I do with the home. What are the types of things that can go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And then go through how the policy will respond in those situations and how the policy doesn't respond for things like flood. You know, if they live in an area where it's prone to flood or they're in a flood zone, or if they are concerned about that, you know, how does that work? So I cover the bases to give them a good sense of what to do in the event of a loss. And the first thing is to call me, even if
Mm.
they think it may not be a loss, because brand new homeowners, and a great example, we had someone, first time home buyer, bought beautiful home in Chappaqua, and really didn't know much about it. They come home, the heat's off, don't know what's wrong. They call the oil company, they come in, they come to service it, calls me up and said, gee, I just wondered, was there any coverage for this? Well, guess what? He had equipment breakdown coverage. Um, the oil burner was done for. They had to put a brand new one in. And the company responded and paid the whole cost of the brand new oil burner,
Mm.
$8,000.
Now,
So,
is that considered a loss in the same way that, let's say, the wall through the window or the tree on the roof? Are they the same kinds of losses?
yes and no. Different carriers will treat those differently. Some of the carriers pay those directly. Others farm them out to another resource. So it depends on the carrier. Is what I would say to
Mm.
that on how it's
Mm.
counted.
Interesting. And since you mentioned it, do you have a minute to make us smart about flood insurance? Because so many areas now, the shore, half of the state of New Jersey, but flood insurance has become so much more of a topic over the last 10 years than it ever was.
Well, I think that's because of Sandy and and many of the no-name storms that have come since Isaiah. We've had so many in the last several years. I go back to the days of Gloria. We had that one on Long Island, so I can talk to you a lot about storms and flooding. But yes, flood insurance is handled by the National Flood. There are some private carriers that offer it as well. If you're in what's called a flood zone, where flood is required by your bank, and I'm sure you deal with this, David, all the time, where a bank will say you're in a designated flood zone, so you're required to purchase flood insurance. What people don't know is that the maximum you can purchase is $250 on the dwelling itself.
$250,000.
That's it.
Do you want to say that again? What people don't
250.
know.
Most people don't know that the most you can purchase in flood coverage for your building, for your house, is $250,000. You can buy $100,000 in contents, but contents in your basement is never covered.
Hmm.
So you could buy a $2 million house out in Montauk, and the most you're going to be able to purchase towards flood is $250,000.
If you use the national flood policy. And I think you nailed it there because what people don't know can hurt them. And particularly many people who are, let's say, in the tri-state area have homes with basements, and national flood doesn't insure you against anything below grade.
Right.
So therefore you may think you're insured and you're not. And then that's a rude awakening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, what's the answer? I mean, flood zones happen to exist in beautiful places that we all want to be in, and people want to live in, and we want to visit. So, for better, for worse, people will continue to purchase homes and live in those areas.
Hmm. Hmm.
Flood insurance, if you have a loan, is going to be for, forever. If you're in an area that is, maybe has never flooded, but it's a flood zone, you're going to have that policy as long as you have your loan. Am I right?
Yeah. So I just want to circle on this, and I don't mean to be whatever, but 2 points that I like to share with my clients about flood insurance. One is that if the existing owner has flood insurance, often the best way to get the flood insurance is to assume the existing flood policy rather than get another one. Is that correct?
Um, it's easier for the insurance agent. It's a form, and you can just, as you said, transfer it over. I've done that a number of times. But if you need a policy for your closing, as an example, they're flexible in that they will issue it for closing. If you're a current homeowner and you want flood insurance, you have to do a 30-day wait. You
Hmm.
probably knew that.
Hmm. And the other, well, now I lost my train of thought. Um, Spoke about flood insurance. Um, Sorry,
That's
I lost
okay.
it. Let me just take a break for a second.
Sure. Is there something, David, that you wanted to cover specifically about flood, or?
No, just I'm trying to make this something that I can give my clients and share with them, that, so let's just,
Yeah, I
we'll go
was going to
back.
say,
Sorry, editor, sorry for the interlude.
do you want to talk
Um,
about multi-policy discounts? Getting the most
yeah,
for your
I'd love
dollar.
that's the next thing on my list. But
Okay.
let me just
Mhm.
in terms of flood, as we've said, the important thing to remember about flood insurance is number one, that if you are buying a home with a mortgage and you're in a flood zone, that the lender will, by federal law, be required to require you to have flood insurance.
Exactly.
And that number two, if you're in a market where the federal flood insurance is available and it suits your needs, that's the best you're going to do. Sometimes there's off-market flood insurance,
Yes.
third-party insurances that are good, and sometimes great realtor, great, I'm sorry, sometimes great insurance brokers like you can shop the market and do very, very well relative to the what's available. Particularly, let's say someone has a fully built out basement with an entertainment space with whatever. You want to make sure that you have the coverage that will truly cover you. Over the years, the war stories just of people who have had losses because they weren't properly insured. It's just a nightmare. It's just a nightmare.
It's awful, and post Sandy, and my childhood home was one of the homes that was pretty much destroyed in Sandy in Freeport, Long Island, and uh, for years, because my father didn't have a mortgage, we never had flood insurance. And I would talk to him, the insurance agent, talk to him about it, and my father didn't feel the need to get it. So after he passed, my brother was inheriting the house. He said to me, "Can we get some flood insurance on the house?" So we did, and needless to say, he used it.
Hmm.
He used it entirely on that
Hmm.
house.
So I know that you wear a number of hats, but we've been talking about homeowners insurance. One of the things that you and I have discussed, because we just referred a client to this past week, was you asked me about their car coverage. Why is that important?
Well, it's important for a number of reasons. I feel it's necessary to do the full job when you speak with someone. Um, yes, they're buying a new home. Uh, that means a move. So from a car insurance perspective, it means they're going to be potentially in a different territory. Um, if you have, let's say, a couple that is either just getting married and buying a house, which we see that all the time, sometimes their cars are separate and now the home. So what I look to do is find a company that will write the cars together and the home, and potentially write them an excess liability policy, $1 million excess liability policy to cover them as well, and bundle those, put them together in a package so that they maximize their discounts and get excellent coverage.
So I think that's a great point, that by bundling, by going to one company, some companies are very good at this. Some companies offer you a discount. So A plus B is a lot less expensive than A and B separate.
That's right. That's right.
So having a great insurance person helps there. I had forgotten, and I'm glad you tickled my memory. Homeowners, young homeowners, often don't know about umbrella policies,
Right.
what you call excess liability. Can you make us smart about that, please?
Sure. Well, again, this is part of the new homeowner, first-time homeowner discussion, is that, now you're buying your biggest and best investment, which you may move on from, but today that is your biggest and best investment. And now you have something to protect. So while your homeowners has liability coverage with it and your auto has liability coverage with it, they call it an umbrella because it covers over your exposures, your personal liability. And many people don't realize that their personal liability covers them off-site if they play any kind of sports. And let's say they're a golfer. I had a golfer in here yesterday. He said, wow, if I hit someone accidentally, of course, in the head with a golf ball, we'd have coverage for that. I said, absolutely. So and then if you buy a jet ski, you buy a boat, you buy a snowmobile, motorcycle, all of those go under the umbrella. And that's the idea of it. They're
And
very inexpensive. I'm sorry.
And besides, when you have a house, you're now a target. So someone who has a slip and fall in front of your home might sue you in a different way than if you were living in an apartment. You would never be a target to that suit.
You're exactly right.
And in this litigious age, if somebody says, "Oh, he's a homeowner. Look at they live in this great neighborhood," it's worth suing them to see what happens. If you have a car accident and your car coverage is not enough for whatever, having an umbrella policy covers you and puts you in a much better place. And
what people don't realize is they're not very expensive. If you're talking about, typical 2 cars and a home, it's $250 somewhere thereabouts, under $300 for coverage for $1 million. And for a small amount more, you can get 2 million or more, depending upon your asset base. But what people don't also realize is that it's not always worrying about the umbrella being paid out, but it's about having the insurance company's attorneys backing you in court. If you have, low limits of liability on your car insurance, you have a severe car accident and you get slapped with a $1 million lawsuit, you don't have the insurance company's attorneys protecting you because there's no protection there. So it's just smart. And again, it's part of the appointment. It's part of the time to talk about it. Some people will choose to do it today. Some will choose to do it next year. Some might choose to do it in 5 years or never. But it's good to have the information and make astute decisions based on the information that
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to take a break.
Okay.
Resume. And so, your name is Lillian Chapman. You work for Albert Chapman Insurance. Who is Albert? And tell me the history of the company.
Albert was my father-in-law, and he founded the agency back in 1957 at his kitchen table. And he grew the business. He started there, and then he moved all to different spots around town. And we've been in this particular space at 1852 Commerce Street since 1986. And Bob joined him when he was of age to work. I think he probably stuffed envelopes and did things when he was a kid as well, but
Hmm.
came to work with him. And then I had my career with Liberty Mutual for 26 years, in various roles there. And then at Fidelity Investments. And then in the last 7 years ago, I guess it was, that Bob decided that I wasn't going to retire and relax. I was going to come and work with him, which has been the best job I ever had.
That's
I love
great.
it.
What makes it a great job?
Well, we get to do it together. We
Uh-huh.
get to continue my father-in-law's dream, his business that he began and developed and created and worked on.
Hmm.
And we get to solve things together. We get to work on new clients, existing clients. We get to solve problems for people. And it really makes you feel good. We work with new business owners. We work with seasoned business owners. We work with brand new homeowners. We work with people that have been in their homes for years. And when you get to sit down in front of somebody and help guide them through their insurance program and show them something they didn't know before and provide them with better protection and you even save them money, it's a great day. It makes you feel really good.
That was gold. That was golden. You really
It's
brought
true.
passion to that
It's
answer.
true. It's
You
true.
really brought passion to. I love it. That was like, great passion, great answer. So I'm a first-time home buyer,
Mhm.
and I call you up and I say, I was just referred to you, and I need insurance because I'm buying a house.
Mhm.
What happens then?
Well, then I ask about: are you buying the home by yourself? Are you single, married? So we have a lot of young couples that buy the house before they get married, which is
Mhm.
fine. We want to just make sure that, again, we're maximizing discounts and we're maximizing information to the people that need it. So I'll ask a lot of questions about the home that they know. I also will ask them to send me their inspection report. Almost
Mm.
everybody gets a home inspection. And
Why? What does that tell you?
well, it'll tell us things about the age of the roof. It'll tell us about the electric. It'll show us some photos to see if there are trees that are too close to the house itself, that branches that might be a problem. If there's a staircase with perhaps a handrail that's missing, or a treacherous a basement staircase without a handrail at all. Missing a step, anything like that. I mean, in most cases, we're not seeing anything really, really dangerous, but there are things that we know when an insurance company comes out after the fact to do their inspection that they are keen on. There are some
Mm.
carriers that won't write a roof that's over 20 years old.
Mm.
If the roof is newer and has moss on it, it can appear that it's older. So that report will help us to first verify the square footage. In many cases, it'll have a floor plan, the number of bathrooms, the type of heat, where the oil tank's located, all of those things, so that we can have a second a way to verify all those details.
Mm.
So again,
But I think you
stakeholders.
hit on something key that many, many people don't know, and that is that after the insurance policy is written, quite often the insurance company will come out and they'll inspect your home. And if
Yes,
there are issues, the insurance company, even in New York, right, can
yes,
cancel the policy
yes.
because it doesn't meet guidelines.
Yes, in the first 60 days, the carrier has the ability to cancel a risk or require changes to that risk if people want to stay on board. And exactly the examples we were just talking
Mm.
about. Again, when you're buying a home, you don't have the ability to make all these changes. I'm working with someone right now who's purchasing a home that needs a new roof, but the seller is not making that part of the deal. So what did I do? I talked with the underwriter and I said, look, this is an old roof. He knows it's an old roof. In the first 60 days, the roof is going to come off and he's going to replace it. So with two different companies, one said that they have an endorsement that will provide an actual cash value coverage for that roof, because the company isn't going to give him a new roof in that instance. Another carrier said they wanted minimal protection on it, just a homeowner 3 without some extra protections like guaranteed replacement and things like that for the time being until that roof is repaired. So in the 60 days, he'll get the roof on, and then we can amend that policy. So he has a choice. And that's the other advantage dealing with a broker. We work with a number of different companies that have different rules, different requirements, and different ways of solving an issue, that we can kind of present those to that client. IBMer in the area here, I presented those 2 scenarios, and he wanted to go with the one with the limited coverage, as opposed to the actual cash value on the roof. So it's good to have carriers that will work with you in an instance like that. But to your point, yes, we make sure that people know that someone's coming out. Since COVID, there aren't as many interior inspections. If it's a high value home, though, they will do an interior inspection for sure.
Interesting. So this has been so much fun, Lillian. We should do it again. For my clients who are looking for insurance, how do they find you? How do they contact you?
Well, they can call me anytime, and I mean that. We do pick up our phone whenever we can, and then also you can email me. So my number is 914-962-5778. My extension is 202, or you can email me at Lillian, Lillian, at Albert, the letter J, Chapman, CHAPMAN.com, and that was my father-in-law's name and the name of our agency.
So we're going to post that below so that it'll be easy to find Lillian, easy to get in contact with them. I've worked with them now, and I'm just very impressed. Just truly warm, nice human beings, and people who have the expertise to take care of you. And this has been such a privilege, such a pleasure. And thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, for me too. Thank you, David. I enjoy working with you as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm your mortgage guy, Dave Steinberg, and this is your Summit Funding Minute. Let me try that again. Hi, this is Dave Steinberg, and this is your Summit Minute. We're sitting here with Lillian Chapman of Albert Chapman Insurance. And Lillian, what are the 3 things that people must know today if they're buying a home and they're going to get it insured?
Well, they must know that they have to look at all the options out there. There are a lot of new coverages that you may not be aware of. You need to understand that combining your policies, perhaps, as be the second one, will bring you big savings. The third thing you want to know is that when you choose deductibles and safeguards to your home, like alarms, smoke detectors, deadbolt locks, fire extinguishers, all of these things will play into the premium and will give you a better rate.
Thank you so much. Hi, this is Dave Steinberg, and this is your Summit Minute, all about insurance. There are lots of things that people don't know. First-time home buyers buying a home, what should they know about property insurance?
Well, they should know that they need to sit down with, my dog just grabbed something out of my garbage. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Start one more time, David. I'm sorry. The dog just walked in the middle of it.
Okay. Oh, good. How big?
You know what? I'm going to close this door and he won't be able to get back in.
Hi, this is Dave Steinberg, your mortgage guy, and this is your Summit Minute. We're sitting with Lillian Chapman of Chapman Insurance. And what does a first-time home buyer need to know before they buy their home? What do they need to know about insurance?
Well, they should sit with a trusted advisor. They should sit with someone that has had the experience, has the access to different companies that might work well for them, and has the time and interest in reviewing those with them. Many times, new homeowners don't know anything about what the homeowner insurance might cover. So one of the things we do is we sit down with all the stakeholders and go over all the coverages.
Help them make better decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What else?
Well, we look to, if possible, get multi-policy discounts. Is there auto insurance available to add to the package? Do they need an umbrella policy? These are things that we like to review and go over with them. Are we maximizing discounts? Do they have smoke detectors, deadbolt locks, fire extinguishers, burglar alarms, water sensors in their home, heat sensors in their home, Simply Safe alarms, you name it, whatever they might have that will give them a better price point, we will look for it. We also have different carriers for different purposes. Some companies will have better rates for different territories and different coverages that might be more appealing to some people. When I do my initial interview and speak with someone about their home that they're buying, I try to get a sense of what's most important. And then I use that in my notes to go back and then do my research and make sure I hit on those things. Do they want a carrier that's a regional carrier, or are they interested in having a national carrier? So having both types of carriers available is important.
Finally, why should I go to a insurance broker like you when I can buy something online?
Oh my goodness. Well, there's some things you can buy online. Like I buy my cereal online. I buy my shampoo online, but I don't need any guidance or help with those purchases. When it comes to insurance, you need an expert. You need a trusted advisor. And that's what we do. We've been doing this each for 40 plus years. We know what we're doing. We sit down with you either by phone, by internet, by Zoom, and or in person. We do that still, and find out what's most important and provide you with the protection that you need.
Marvelous. This has been Dave Steinberg with Lillian Chapman, and we're talking about homeowners insurance. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Our information will be below. Thank you so much, Lillian.
Thank you, David.